What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So, I'm graduating soon. I don't even know the date of my graduation actually. Wait, I should probably check that. Okay, so my Minecraft UC Blockley ceremony is tomorrow apparently, and then my official online graduation is this Monday. And if you're new here, don't watch any video released in 2019 because I didn't know how to edit a video then. So if you don't know me personally, I interned at NASA one summer, and if you do know me personally, you probably still don't know that I interned at NASA because I don't really talk about myself. That's what this YouTube channel is for. But too bad I didn't have a YouTube channel back then. Like, if you think about it, if I started my YouTube channel at the beginning of college, how many vlogs would I have by now? How much content would I have by now? So if you know me, you know that I wear this certain jacket a lot. And no, I did not get this jacket at Forever 21. I got it at the actual NASA store. And I know what you're gonna ask. Did I try astronaut ice cream? And no, I did not, but I saw it in one of the gift shops. But this was probably one of the most random summers of my life. Well, I haven't lived for very long, so I don't know how much more random my summers are gonna get. I kind of want to make this video to document my experience so that I can look at this video, say 10, 20 years from now and be like, wow, I went to outer space that one summer. So yeah, this video is more for me rather than for you, but thanks for being here. So in terms of applying for the internship, I kind of forgot what the process was like because this happened 2 years ago in 2018. But I guess the first step of applying would be to apply. And I happened to get really lucky because I got a really good mentor. And funny story, he actually went to UC Berkeley also. So we had a lot of really interesting conversations to talk about and compare how UC Berkeley was when he went there X amount of years ago versus UC Berkeley from when I was going there. But one thing that I've learned throughout all my experiences so far is that having a really good mentor is really important and super valuable. Having someone that takes the time to sit down with you and work through your project with you, answer your questions, and guide you not only in your project but also what you want to do in the future is really important and is something that should always be appreciated. And I wouldn't be where I am today without all of the really great mentors I have had. They've been super inspiring, and I really hope one day I could become a mentor just as great as they were to me to other people. But what also made the experience that summer so great were the really cool people that I met, both people working at NASA and the intern cohort. I met a group of interns that I still keep in touch with, and I think actually some of them work there full time. What I think is one of the funniest things about this internship was my housing. When I got the intern offer, in the pamphlet they said that they have something called a NASA Lodge, and it's basically this expired military bunker that sits on the NASA campus and houses all of its interns for the summer. Pretty lit, if you ask me. And the summer that I interned at NASA, my brother was working at Google. That's like right next door. So I would literally work at NASA during the day, and then to get free food at Google's campus, my brother would pick me up and then he would drive me to Google, and I would just freeload on all the free snacks and food that they had. I actually think there were some people who worked at both NASA and Google. Their way of getting between campuses was riding bikes. And speaking of bikes, all interns are given a bike for the summer. And as some of you who know me, I don't know how to ride a bike, but that summer I learned how to ride one. The NASA intern bikes were these chunky orange bikes, and I would wake up maybe at like 8 a.m. in the morning. I would hop on my NASA orange bike and then I would bike to the building where my desk was at. The interns who worked in the same building as me knew that at around like 9 a.m. every day, Megan would come rolling in on her bike. So yeah, I got really good at riding a bike that summer. Another thing that's super funny is that a lot of the buildings on the campus had nerdy scientific references. I remember I was with my roommate from the NASA Lodge and we were looking at the map, like exploring and seeing what buildings we want to go to. And then we saw on the map, hey, this thing says megabytes. And then we show up thinking that's gonna be some hardware store or a computer store or the IT bar. And no joke, it was a cafe called Megabytes, classic Megabytes. I would give anything right now to visit Megabytes. I remember that summer being kind of bored sometimes on weekends because there's not really much to do in Mountain View. Probably the one thing that people do in Mountain View is go to this street called Castro Street, and it's basically this one-way street that just has a bunch of restaurants and cafes and tea and coffee shops where everyone goes to eat, and everyone there is speaking Silicon Valley jargon. Like one time I was in line to get gelato and the guy behind me was saying, linear algebra is everything. And I remember getting Berkeley professor flashbacks. But on Castro Street, there were two cafes that I remember that I went to a lot that summer. One was called Alexander Patisserie, and it's this high-end bougie cafe that sells really good pastries and coffee. So on weekends, during the afternoons, you could probably catch me at Alexander Patisserie eating some matcha croissant and sipping on some bougie 3 times overpriced coffee. And there was also this one other boba cafe called Verde Tea Cafe, where I went to probably every night because they closed the latest on Castro Street, and I would just go there and sip on some honey green tea. There's also this really good Indian cuisine restaurant in Mountain View, and it's called Zarene's. If you're ever in Mountain View, I highly recommend you check out Zarene's. I ate Zarene's so much that summer. Their chicken tikka masala. So at the front of the restaurant, they have this giant jug where the giant jugs, like the pitcher, where you could press the button thing and then liquid comes out. What do you call it? Pitcher jugs? And anyway, you go to the front and then you bring your little teacup and you press the button and then liquid comes out into your cup. But this is special liquid. This is their chai tea. It's hot and creamy and sweet and probably contains a 2-to-1 sugar to tea ratio, but it's amazing. I also rode Caltrain a lot that summer. If you don't know what Caltrain is, it's basically the Polar Express, and you have to time the Caltrain schedule with the BART schedule, but the problem is that the Caltrain only runs around once every hour. So if you miss the Caltrain, you have to wait the next hour to catch the next train. And a lot of the times, I would always try to push it, like catch the BART that will meet the Caltrain within the minute that the Caltrain arrives. But literally every time I would get off BART and I would be running over the bridge to get to the other side and catch the Caltrain, but I'm too slow. So I'm literally running on the bridge and I can see the Caltrain leaving me, and I'm like, no, wait for me. So I spent a majority of my time that summer just sitting there waiting for the next Caltrain. Anyway, enough of the fun stuff. Yes, surprisingly, I actually did do some work during that summer internship. So I was in something called the Diagnostics and Prognostics Research Group, or short, the DNP Research Group. It took me probably 5 weeks into my internship to be able to say the name of our group. Basically, diagnostics means diagnosing what's wrong with the system, and prognostics means determining how much longer does that system have before it fails completely. So what I did that summer was basically work with the algorithms in both diagnostics and prognostics. So for example, if we have autonomous rovers in space and something goes wrong with the system, how are we going to write and implement and design algorithms that determine what's wrong with our rover and then determines the remaining useful life of the rover before it just crashes and burns completely? You have some system and you want to perform some sort of computation on that system, or you want to analyze it and look at it through some quantitative lens. The first major step is finding some way to represent your system. Finding an accurate model for your system is actually really difficult, and something that I learned in Berkeley was something that all engineers are taught is that all models are wrong. So how are we going to create a model of our system that's the least wrong as possible? So for example, in our autonomous rover problem that we had, how are we going to represent our rover? We're going to have to store information about our rover in some way. The way that we represented this system was defining something called the dependency matrix. So it's basically this matrix that stores relationships between test points and parts of our system. So say we have a circuit, and placed throughout that circuit are test points. So in our dependency matrix, we had relationships between these test points and parts of our circuit. So 0 means that a test point did not implicate certain parts of our circuit, and a 1 means that the test point does implicate or involve these parts of our circuit. And then now that we've established some sort of representation for our system, we can now systematically step through an algorithm to determine what parts are going wrong in our system, or what test points that we place throughout our system are failing. I remember that summer, I got super obsessed with this one prognostics algorithm that's super cool, mathematically complex, and super powerful. And it's this machine learning algorithm called the Kalman filter. And other versions of the Kalman filter are something called the extended Kalman filter and then unscented Kalman filter. Extended basically works on nonlinear systems, and then I believe the unscented Kalman filter works on nonlinear systems because it approximates the Jacobian, but it's slightly better than the extended Kalman filter. And if I recall, NASA implemented the unscented Kalman filter on their systems. But TLDR of Kalman filters, they predict where an erratic linear system will be next. So for example, if you have two sets of data, one is real-time data that you're pulling in through sensors on your system, and then you also have some prediction of where your system will be, and these can be represented through models such as kinematic equations or physics. And what a Kalman filter does is that it takes these two storehouses of data from our sensors and from our mathematical model, and then averages them to predict where a system will be next. I remember I was reading some book or article that NASA published, and I remember thinking, what the hell is an unscented Kalman filter? Like, does it smell bad or something? And I remember being super intrigued by it. So I went to my mentor, and then we talked about it. I sat down and talked to other NASA research scientists, and they helped me. They drew on the whiteboard and explained the Kalman filter. I remember getting super into it, and I was like, this is super cool. I want to write something that uses the Kalman filter, and I want it to be an application that is close to me personally. So I've been playing soccer since I was 7 years old, and ever since I first touched a soccer ball, I never stopped. And that summer happened to be the summer 2018 Men's World Cup. So basically there were two things going on in my mind at the time: soccer and Kalman filter. So one day when I was sitting there on my laptop at Alexander Patisserie on Castro Street, I was like, hey, why don't I build a Kalman filter program that is based on a soccer application? So I probably spent 6 weeks on this one project where I coded up a Kalman filter, and it predicted the future state of a soccer ball on a penalty kick. So my mathematical model were basically 3D kinematic equations. I remember factoring in like drag, because when you kick a ball, the wind will slow down the soccer ball. The location of your foot when it impacts the ball, if your foot hits the bottom of the ball will fly higher. And if your foot hits the top of the ball, then the ball will probably stay closer to the ground. And I factored in like the stress of the penalty kick player, if they were winning, losing, or tied. And then I factored in the height of the goalie, the skill of the goalie, whether the goalie was on the winning or losing team. This is probably one of the most random projects I've ever worked on. So later on in the summer, the DMP group held something called a NASA Intelligent Systems Division Showcase, where they basically invited students from around the Bay Area to come and visit NASA so that we could encourage them to pursue STEM. And they asked some interns to participate and present on some of their projects. And this was a really cool experience, actually. But I presented my Kalman filter project there, and I gave it the official title, the Kalman Kick. But after presenting, I remember I was asked to participate in this interview/video where they asked me to give advice to students on how to pursue STEM and what opportunities that they can take. I remember feeling kind of nervous and being like, dang, no wonder Tom Cruise is paid so much. Anyway, he hits record,
and at that moment,
a star was born.
I'm a one-take wonder. After recording and saying my part, the cameraman goes to me and is like,
have you done this before? You're a natural in speaking in front of the camera.
Little did he know that 2 years from that date,
I would start a YouTube channel.
But impact of that internship internship. I came back from that internship to my junior year at Berkeley, and I was super inspired to learn. I remember that semester I enrolled in like 5 technical classes, and I was super into learning quantum mechanics. And then after that summer, I began to approach chemical problems through a quantitative lens. Like, how can we represent a molecule in the same way that I represented my autonomous rover in space that summer? How can I represent a molecule and store its bonds and atoms relationships in a matrix through zeros and ones? Actually, looking back, I was kind of hesitant at first to take this internship. My major at Berkeley was bioengineering, so the internship wouldn't be related to bioengineering at all whatsoever. There was zero overlap. But I think the moral of the story is that even if you take an opportunity or do some experience that you think is 100% completely not related to you or your interests at all, it's still in the end going to be worth it, because you're probably going to learn a lot of things that you didn't expect to learn. Like going into my NASA internship, I never would have dreamed that I would come out of it learning what the Kalman filter was, or being more interested in solving chemistry problems through math. Or even if you take an opportunity or internship or whatever, or start a YouTube channel and you end up hating it, every experience is going to be worth it, whether you end up loving it or hating it. And something that I've gotten better at as I've gotten older is accepting this uncertainty in life. Like, you need to do whatever the fuck you want. Like, life isn't this straight line where you know exactly what's gonna happen next after one experience. And it's only through taking gambles and risks with experiences that let you grow. Anyways, I'm starving, so that's a sign that I need to end this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't be lazy. I will see you the next time I pause my Korean drama and get up off my ass and record another video.